Hi, I'm James Schillinglaw, and I'm here with Matthew Upchurch, Chairman and CEO of Virtuoso, the Luxury Travel Network, and we're here at the Virtuoso Symposium in Vancouver, and this is Insider Travel Videos. Matthew, it's been a great meeting, and we heard from some very interesting speakers. And Ken Dykewald, who is kind of an expert in Age Wave, that's his company, and in terms of the generations and who is traveling. We've heard from him before at your many meetings. And here, he had a session where he was talking a little bit about we may have lost sight of the potential of, God forbid, the baby boomer. You and I are baby boomers almost, I think, and he's saying maybe we got to take another look at that. There's been a lot of attention to millennials, no attention to Generation X. What is your view? Do you think we've shifted too much and really start talking about not talking about baby boomers as much?
By the way, that's why the Gen Xers are called the forgotten generation. So,
I think I would love to be an expert and come and be the Gen X expert. I haven't seen one of those.
And they get a little grumpy about it too. But it's interesting. First of all, obviously there's a massive amount. We actually shared information at our Hong Kong symposium where we did different traits of different generations, and we actually reported almost 3 years ago now that millennials were our fastest growing customers. They were actually showing the highest loyalty, which was really a surprising thing to their advisors. So we reported that 3 years ago. But I had felt, Ken Dykewald, his company's presentation to Virtuoso, we were API at the time, in 1997 was a pivotal moment about how the boomers were going to change everything, right? And that led me to changing the brand and Virtuoso and all that. So what I felt was really important is that we needed to refresh. Ken Dykewald has been working with Bank of America and Merrill Lynch on the future of retirement. So I've been privy to some of these things and gone to some of the presentations. And if you look at the buying power of the baby boomers, this is not about boomers and no millennials, or millennials and no boomers. It's just about rebalancing the information. And you look at most of the wealth in the United States is held by the boomers. They have this tremendous desire for peak experiences as far as part of their life, what they want to do in travel. They're seeking peak experiences. So we wanted to kind of rebalance that. And there's some other, the longevity revolution. I think the other thing that we really don't fully understand as humanity right now is that we really are at the beginning of a longevity revolution that is...
We both hope so, right?
It's happening. I mean, here's an incredible statistic. It's not exact number, but it's directionally correct, which I just find amazing. 80% of all human beings that have ever lived to the age of 80 are alive today. And they're healthy, a lot of them, right? So the point being that there's this market. What are the psychographics? What are they looking for? Things like that. And of course, we balance that by having Ken's millennial son, who moved to China when he was 22, speaks fluent Mandarin, is now back in New York, whatever, talking about the millennials and what they're doing. And they had a great session called the Boomer Millennial Smack.
I saw it. It was amazing.
Right? So it was a lot of fun. So to me, it was more about the balancing act. The other thing that was incredible, a statistic from Ken, was that not only do those boomers have all this money, not only do they have this desire for peak experiences, but they're now talking at the time affluence economy, meaning that the boomers are going to have 2.5 trillion hours of free time in the next 20 years. So there's a tremendous opportunity there.
Yeah, I still don't have that free time. I don't know what happened. I don't think you do much either.
Well, no, by choice, though.
By choice, right. Now, Ken also talked about what he views as what travel advisors are today, and he said they really are in the alchemy business, and basically that they are creating and devising these incredible peak travel experiences for their customers. Is that your view, and how do you believe the role of a travel advisor has evolved in that way?
Well, I mean, it's true, and I think what Ken is there's not a lot new here. He's trying to put some new language on it, and I think that what it's about, what he means by alchemy. Remember, he showed us those photos and that definition about it's kind of magic. Alchemy is a little bit of magic. And
I
that's
think he had the Mickey as the sorcerer's apprentice there.
exactly. He showed us that clip, right? You know, you do this, you do that. But I think what it is that, you know, one of the things that I spoke about was, you know, when the digital revolution happened, you know, one of the big things was we're going to get rid of the useless middleman, because we can now go direct to consumer, and going direct to consumer is going to be more loyalty, and therefore more loyalty means more revenue. But what happened is the people that truly were just kind of like distributors, quote unquote, that got pushed out. But now people go to an advisor for all of the different, it's how do you put all this stuff together? How do you make magic out of it? So I will continue to just, I'm sound like a broken record, but our own consumer research just shows this. You have to fully understand what is the value proposition, and how do you communicate that value proposition in a very clear way about what you do before the trip, what's your value during the trip. But the part that I always keep coming back to, that our research shows directly from the consumers, is the single most important thing that consumers tell us differentiates a transactional travel agent from a trusted travel advisor are the conversations and the follow-up after the trip. And if you don't do that, you will be felt to be more of a commodity. And that relationship, you know, we spend a lot of time and effort training our advisors on how do you have that, right? Because there's certain personality types. How was your trip? Well, it was okay. And they're fuming, right? Because there's some people that don't like the confrontation.
Sure.
So we train on those things. So a great hint from Ann Scully, who's amazing, is don't ask how was your trip. Tell me some highlights. And if you could change anything about that trip, what would it be? And boy, that opens up the discussion.
Yeah. Now, you spoke a little bit about the idea of loyalty in the travel business, and how are you helping your members sort of build and create loyalty with their customers, and how can they create those lifetime customers?
Well, what I specifically said was that loyalty, based, again, some of our own proprietary research, that loyalty is built on the structural and the emotive. So the structural are all the systems, processes, points, price strategies, et cetera. The structural is all the things that make it efficient to be quick and efficient and communicate in the way the customer wants to communicate, make things predictable, have the data that allows you, that the customer has an expectation about, you should know this about me. So it's all those things. And systems, you know, investments, and having CRMs, all the different things that you need to do to have the structural are important. But that's a structural arms race too. Everybody's trying to get better and better. Yeah. What I said though is that's only half the story, and this is where I keep telling our partners and the suppliers is that you've got to understand that the other part is the emotive. It's this human connection. It's this idea that in a world that's more and more complex, people just like, make it simpler, make it more fun. Give me somebody I can trust. And that's one of the reasons I believe that travel advisors are the hottest new thing that never went away. Because there's a lot of people that are willing to pay somebody to have somebody like that in their lives that makes it fun, makes it simpler, has their back, right? So the emotive, so the structural and the emotive. And we have a gentleman who spoke to us in 2009 who wrote a book called The Relationship Revolution. He actually sent an email to me recently. He lives in London. Very interesting premise. He says, since I spoke, I think that the relationship revolution is even more important, because as more and more businesses trying to optimize their margins have removed the airport experience, right? As they've removed as many people from the equation, the few human interactions that you do have, which are fewer, are even more important than they've ever been.
Yeah, that would stand to reason, yeah. And we're talking a little bit about the perception of what travel advisors are, and obviously that's changed a lot over the last years really 10 years, because, if 10 years ago people thought travel agents weren't around anymore and travel advisors weren't around, and now they do know that. How do you believe that Virtuoso has helped change that perception?
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to our members, because I do believe that they have led this whole kind of transformation. It has to do with clarity of message. It has to do with the way, really being able to, when we're trying to help our members kind of craft how they go to market, it's what I've seen with a lot of great advisors over the years, like the really, really good ones, it's like talking to a pro athlete. How did you score all those points? And they sound like a Nike commercial. Like, I don't know, I just do it.
Right.
Well, I said, well, that's great for the client that knows that what you just did, but for the client that doesn't know that, how do you articulate your value proposition? And not in some like, ethereal kind of way, but very concretely. So I think that, the press that we've done, I mean, we've invited press for years. We've had articles, we've had training, we've had all the different things that we've done, and really trying to articulate that different perspective. And one of the things that I continue to say, again, I sound like a broken record, but if you want to be a trusted travel advisor, if you start and say you're in the business of booking travel, you've lost before you've started. Booking of the travel, there are literally hundreds of new ways that are being invented every day to book travel.
Sure.
You're in the human connection, you're in the relationship business, you're in the optimization business of people's leisure time, and you're in the, as Zach Dykewald said, you're in the I got a guy business.
Right.
When you go there, I got a guy, I got a guy, I got a gal, right?
And it's absolutely true, yeah. So it's almost back to the future in terms of actually knowing human connections are forming a better relationship for the travel advisor and their customer.
But it always has. I mean, I always like to, we all, as we all, go through our careers, whatever, we have this, I love this term, terminal uniqueness. We think that what we're going through, right, has never happened before. You look at, God rest her soul, Miriam Rand, who would have been 101, one of my mentors, the travel agent of Marilyn Monroe and Bing Crosby. You look at what it was like being a travel agent back in the 50s when Pan Am and BOAC were like walking into Nordstrom's or Bergdorf's, when there were 4 airfares. Nobody needed, more people booked airlines direct then than ever before. And because booking direct, it was a high-end business at the time, why would you use a travel agent, right? For the same reasons we use them today, because you may know the hotel, I have a personal relationship. You may have this, and it's community knowledge. Today we think of things like crowdsourcing. Well, people went to a travel agent in 1950 because all the other people in their community used that advisor, right? That travel agent. And they knew, I want you to do what you did for James. Give me that, some of that.
Well, it's interesting to see how it has evolved. And actually, here we are, and it looks like we've sort of turned a corner, and now that travel advisors are valued, where do we go from here? What is the role of the travel advisor of the future, and what should they prepare for?
Well, first of all, I think that first of all, one of the things that we've got to realize is that this whole thing about loyalty, the structural and the emotive are going to continue to, everybody is upping their game on that, right? So particularly in the luxury sector, how do you become more personal? Hotels are now doing more and more and more something that we've said for years, which is instead of the concierge waiting to be asked something, they're contacting clients before they arrive. How can we help you? How can we personalize all this? So I think it's going to be, I think the advisor of the future is going to be somebody that really has to understand the unique way in which a particular client likes to be dealt with. Some people like details, some people don't. I mean, it's so you can't have this kind of one size fits all kind of an approach. I also think it's going to be really important. There's so much business to be had that I do think that advisors have got to be really good at understanding what clients they need to spend more time on, and frankly, what clients to get rid of. Because
much more selective.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're an advisor, there's only 2 things you have. Money, hopefully you get the money, but you have time and knowledge. And you better manage that well. So I think that being able to optimize your book of business, I also think that the future of advising, a lot of the really great advisors today, one of the things I notice about them is that they're never working on one trip at a time. Whether they're doing it consciously or subconsciously, they're always having kind of conversations about the future. And I think that that's another thing that's coming, where you're going to see, a more of a formalization of that process.
Like a financial planning for the future, the travel planning for the future.
My God, I've been saying that for so many years, but it is about, because if you can help build a framework about, this is the life stage I'm in, this is what it doesn't mean that you don't change something because, it's not like you're planning, I will be in London, 3 years from now in July. but it's about building a framework of understanding. And with the world being so complicated, building frameworks that then people can kind of get their head around to look at prioritization. And then what happens is you're able to drop in certain things and then make things that are more last minute be more contextually fun.
Well, Matthew, always a pleasure. Thank you for your thoughts on this. It was a fascinating talk that you gave, that Ken Dykewald gave, that Zach Dykewald gave. And I always learn something new when I come to one of your Virtuoso symposiums.
Thank you, James. Good to see you as always.
I'm James Schillinglaw for Insider Travel Videos.